G'day, folks. It's the Two Ordinary Cops back again. Summer edition, eh, Schultzy?
Well, yeah, mate. Yeah, it's starting to warm up a little bit, and I hear you got a bit of rain down there, big fella.
Yeah, well, it was warmish, but it's just a bit of a cold front coming through now with a bit of moisture, which is what we need. So we're happy. I'm in Hernani again this week. I'll be in the Coffs Harbour again next week. We're a bit of work, but I'm home this week. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh, mate, I believe you had to put a jumper on.
I did. Yeah, it's getting a bit fresh. Might even light the fire. Very civilised.
We don't have that problem in Queensland, mate.
No, no. It's a little bit cool down here. But
Yeah.
mate, you've had a bit of feedback from a few. Oh, we've had quite a bit of feedback. We're happy with that. So yeah, keep it coming. And yeah, we've had a suggestion for a topic to talk about, which is a good topic, I think. So do you want to let us know what we're on to today?
Yeah, mate. Yeah, so we've had a couple ones. I'll just give a few shout outs to start it off. Actually, we'll give the first one to one of our colleagues back in the NT, Jez Brunton. He got in contact, so big shout out to him. I think we worked a lot together in Catherine.
Yeah. Yep.
And all that sort of thing. And it was quite funny because he actually ended up going to quite just a small pub to have I think a lunch or whatever, and have a quiet beer. And he actually met up with someone that both of us know, and that's how that contact actually happened. So yeah, it's a small world, isn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a small world, but it's a microscopic Northern Territory.
Yeah, exactly right.
Mm.
And mate, we've had a couple of other ones as well, and I'll mention, mate, we have had our first email and the two ordinary contact us at twoordinarycops.com. So I'm pretty chuffed about that, and I do apologise to Chris that got in contact with us because, mate, I've been very slack on looking at the email because not many people have contacted it. Well, nobody. He's actually the first one, apart from it being our official email for our podcast. Yeah, so he actually sent us a message asking if we'd discuss about the Zach Rolfe matter, and mate, yeah. So I mean, we will, but yeah, you want to explain what we're going to do there, Damo?
Yeah, so the Zach Rolfe matter we can't really talk about much at the moment because the findings for the inquest haven't come out yet. So the inquest has been held, but the coroner hasn't released the findings yet. So there's no point talking about it until the findings come out. So after it does, we'll just have a read through it and maybe be a few discussion points there.
Yep.
But yeah, it's a topic most people sort of want to hear about. So we'll have a read of the inquest and we'll come back out of there and yeah, go from there.
Yeah, mate. That's exactly right. Also, mate, a big shout out to Robert. Robert contacted us through the normal. Most people get in contact with us through our Facebook page. So yeah, it's actually quite a good site there. And he just asked us. He used to work in building compliance and said, a couple of times when he went to different areas, the police accompanied him, to these things, and he said, can we talk about that in the future, about some of the places we had to go, I suppose, to help or assist other organisations other than so much the health and the fireys and all that sort of thing. So we can definitely, I can think of a couple, and I imagine you can too, mate.
Oh, mate, I did heaps, especially in the major centres. You help other agencies plenty, but during COVID, I worked with all government agencies really, coordinating, especially the repatriation of overseas Australians back into the country during the pandemic. So I had a lot to do with interagency sort of work, and yeah, we can definitely cover that another time as well.
Yeah, mate. Yeah, for sure. And also give a shout out to the almost new recruit that basically she was going through the transition. She got the call the other day, and mate, she's in. So
Oh, very good.
she's in the next squad. So congratulations. We try and encourage people, as many people as we can, to join the police because as an organisational point of view, we loved it. So yeah, it's good to see, and thanks for reaching out. Yeah, if anybody else is about to join and wants a bit of stuff, we've given a bit of help on legislation that she probably needs to look into, just to give her a bit of a head start before she goes in there, because it can be pretty full on trying to learn all that legislation, especially in the first 3 months. So
Yeah,
yeah,
no,
so
exactly.
mate, I'm also going to give a call out to Lockie. All right, he's QPOL, and I had a chat to him
You
the
there,
other
mate?
day. And he has actually brought up something that we're going to talk about today, because I thought it was probably, it's actually it's a pretty good topic to cover off on, and I know you and I, we definitely had stress in the job. So do you want to open it up what we're going to talk about today?
Yeah, mate. So what he was on about was not so much the post-traumatic stress that we've spoken about quite a bit already. What he was talking about was more just the stress of dealing with the work that you deal with and the pressure. The way I look at it is that there's a lot of other stress that goes along with police. It's not just personal danger and all that sort of thing, but quite often you'll be attached to a job where you'll be really interested in the outcome. So it'll be, and you mightn't have knowledge of how something worked out. So it's just knowing how to deal with the stress of dealing with what we deal with all the time, but also it's bloody busy. So everyone can relate to stress. Like most jobs have got an element of stress to them. Policing, I know, especially in the early days, before I went into crime, I think I've mentioned it before, I had 17 hearing files and 70 odd investigations. So my workload was just massive. I had an extremely high workload and the work doesn't stop. It just keeps coming. So then you get the pressure within the organisation of you need to get on top of these jobs. And it's like, well, I'm trying to, but every time I try to, the radio sends me to another job. So I think we can talk about that side of it and sort of how you manage that. And I think a point of that might be that you need to be able to come out and say, I need to be offline for a minute. I need to seriously catch up on these jobs. I need to, and it's not always possible. I know as a supervisor, especially, you've got to manage the guys, but yeah, just the sheer volume of work gets stressful. So
Yeah.
I think we can talk about a few things there and go through it. But did you have anything to say there, or do you want me to kick off with a bit of a story about how it was for me early on?
Mate, I'm just going to actually going to throw a story, and I don't know if you remember this, but basically early on, we both went to Catherine, and we back in the day. Remember we had the pigeonholes where you put all your files and everything you kept like for your work, sort of you study all your files and all that kind of went into a pigeonhole, and they're all
Yeah.
named and all that sort of thing. And I remember you got hammered because you had a pretty busy start, right? Like your first lot of jobs, it was pretty busy. I remember you got all these files back. So back in the day, they used to send it back in a Manila folder, basically, and if it was going to hearing, and you had, and if you're doing a hearing file, it's probably quite a lot more investigation. You've got to go a bit more into it because they're contesting what you've originally put to court. So you've got to gather a bit more evidence and beef the file up, so to speak. And you had quite a few in there. And I remember one night shift because I was looking at it. I don't know, you had 4 or 5, and I thought, holy shit, that's a fair bit. Like to actually be, you got to get a hearing stand, and you were only a junior cop, mate. You'd only been in a few weeks, I think, or a month at that stage. And anyway, I thought as a practical joke because who needs enemies when you got friends like me. I actually that night we had a bit of a quiet period, so I got a whole lot of Manila folders, and I made them up as hearing files, like about 10 of them, and then I put a whole lot of paperwork in them, and then put them on top of your already hearing files. So when you got to work the next morning, you suddenly walked in and thought, "Holy shit, I've got like 15 hearing files to do up instead of
Oh
five."
yeah. Well, I remember walking through the door and just laughing and going, "Oh, this is madness. I'm going to have to be off the road for 3 weeks just to catch up on this." So, just for those who aren't police and don't understand what happens, the court process is if from the police point of view, you're alleging an offence has occurred and you've given the person a court date. They've either been arrested or given a notice to appear or summoned to court for a matter. That will have an initial mention where the matter's mentioned in court. From that, there's a bit of a discussion back and forth, and it may be that the defendant or the person who is going to court will plead not guilty. And if that's the case, then what will happen is that initial information and the initial documents and evidence that's on the file will come back for what we call a full file. And that's where you go through, identify all the witnesses, and basically prove all the points of proof of the offences that you're alleging. So, it's not ridiculous, but it may be that you have to take a few extra statements. You'll have to spend, quite a few hours probably putting the paperwork together, putting the file together, having that file then checked off by your supervisor, and then have it go back to the court or back to prosecutions before the court date, before the hearing date. So there's quite a bit of extra work involved when a person has pled not guilty. And that happens. Everyone will get hearing files. It's just the nature of the beast.
Yeah,
Especially for more high-end things where there's potential for prison, like domestic violence assaults and things like that, or just any kind of indictable offence where the matter could go to a higher level punishment. So when I walked in, and I already had a number of these files, and from memory, there was a lot of breach, DVR, aggravated assaults that the offenders were, it wasn't their first rodeo, so they were probably going to go to prison if they were found guilty for this. So that's why legal aid were pushing them to hearing just to test all the evidence. So anyway, there's a hell of a lot of work in that. So I remember coming in and seeing that big pile of files and just going, "Oh, for God's sake!" And it's just the old overwhelming bloody hell. What do you want me to do? Like, there's only one of me, and I've only got so many rostered hours. And I know that for paperwork and things like that, that wasn't a reason for overtime. So unless you came in on your own time and got them done and worked for free, you just didn't have time. You couldn't do it. I mean, you do your best, especially in day shifts and things like that, but it was just bloody overwhelmingly busy. There was just a lot of work. So, and I suppose the one good thing is you do get good at doing hearing files up, which set me in good stead for down the track when I compiled a lot of like really high level briefs of evidence for Supreme Court matters as a detective. This is and right through to big homicide files that you needed basically there'd be boxes and boxes. You need a like a removalist trolley to move all the files into court for some of those really big matters. So you can imagine just the sheer volume of work involved in that sort of stuff. But
Yeah,
early on, because your learning curve, you're still learning how to do this stuff, and everyone's busy. You're not the only one. So your senior partner's busy, your shift sergeant's busy. So it's very stressful. And I think as a result, look, I think a lot of us were going through the same thing at the same time. So we just all thought the job's bloody stressful.
yeah,
A way we dealt with that a lot was it was once very similar to the way you deal with the trauma stuff. It was we had mates with shared experiences. We'd sit down and talk about, man, I've got all this work on. It might be that somebody in the group had found a good way of doing something, or the other thing was you might work together. If you do have a bit of time and you say, oh, I've got to go out to this community and get a statement off this guy, it might be that one of your mates goes, oh, gee, that'd be handy. While you're out there, do you think you could grab a quick statement off this person for me? So
yeah,
I think there's a few things there. It's that you normalize it, the stress of work by talking about things outside of work with your mates and just normalize it again. And
yeah,
that goes for any person in any job anywhere in the world, really. If you can socialize with people who understand, I just think we're not a very social. We are still, but we're not as social as we used to be. You
no,
know, life's busy, especially when you got kids. You don't socialize anywhere near enough. But I think it's still critical that you have that ability to socialize with people and just chat about life. And this stress that we were dealing with, I think that was really handy. I mean, we were young and we weren't single, but we were all young with no kids and all that sort of stuff. So we used to
yeah,
socialize quite a bit, and I think that helped.
yeah,
Working together as a team. So if someone had to go out there, you'd all just get into it. Or if you and your partner, it might be that you're the case officer, but your partner's still there, so your partner will help put a file together.
mm,
I found teamwork. I mean, we're back to these same old things, aren't we? It's that teamwork. I'll give a quick example of just looking for work and working as a team and why that was important. So, when I was running the City Safe crew, we had an afternoon where we were working and we were going to carry on into the night, but the day shift were about to knock off. And what had happened was there'd been a call. This is in Darwin City. There was a call to a fairly notorious block of flats for people fighting with weapons. Anyway, we responded straight away to this job, and the GD's crew responded behind us, but the GD's crew had been assigned to it. So the case officer was already assigned, but we were first on scene. So we ripped in there and we start settling it down and we'd start arresting main offenders and things like that. And then the second crew turn up, but they've only got about 45 minutes of work left to go. Anyway, so we're in there, we've grabbed the offenders. We've said, look, you just go and speak to these couple of witnesses. We'll punch you out a quick statement. We'll go and lodge these clowns for you. So what we did, we drove back, put them in the watch house, went back upstairs while the other crew was still at the scene, sort of getting a few statements and things like that. We then went upstairs, and realistically, it wouldn't be necessarily up to us to then do anything, but we could see the work that was required, and we knew that this was going to incur these guys quite a bit of overtime. And instead of doing that, we said, right, let's get the files squared away. So we start putting the files together for these couple of blokes we had in custody, to the point where the only thing that really needed to be written was statements of facts. And I've just got a bit of a thing with, as the case officer, I like to write my own statement of facts. That's just the way I operated.
Yep.
I was happy for everyone to assist where needed, but I like to write, and that just for those who don't know, the statement of facts is what gets read out as the allegation in court. And if it's my name on it, I like to write that so that I know what's been written and I'm happy with it. So I we ripped in there and we sort of started it for her. And then when they turned up, they're like, "Oh, we got to do this. We got to lodge these weapons. We got to do all that." And we've got no. Your offenders are lodged. Your weapons are lodged in as evidence. We've written our statements. We've got your file started. All you really need to do is just add in the statements that you've just taken and finish off your statement of facts. And they were
Yep.
stoked. They were absolutely stoked because it doesn't happen a lot. It's easy for people to just go, "Well, let's thank God that's not our job." And I used to hate that attitude. It's like it is your job. You're a police officer, aren't you?
Yeah. Yeah. That's
So
exactly right.
I was pretty proud of that little crew, and that happened quite a bit. We would everyone worked together as a patrol group, and then the burden was lessened a little. And
Yeah.
when that can continue on. So just because a person's been arrested doesn't mean the matter's finished. So um, even after that, we went through and if people then needed to put a hearing file together, it might be that an email to a shift sergeant, and I used to get this quite a bit as a shift supervisor, especially. Hey, we're on days off here, but we've got a couple of files. If you do get an opportunity, we need a statement off this person or that person. And if you did have time, you'd go and do it because people would be more than happy to help you if they knew that you'd help them. So I think the teamwork and the camaraderie lessened that stress of this sheer volume of work that you had to do.
Yep.
And yeah, I think the beauty of this is it's applicable to anything. If you work together as a team, the workload is never as high.
Yeah, mate, like you were dead right there, and I miss like those early days, and I've said it a number of times. Where it didn't matter if one unit got an arrest, like with 5 minutes to go or whatever, we'd all get stuck in and make sure the work was covered. But also, like what you've said there, that is what also the police club was about. It was about networking. It was about getting to know people. I know actually a number of crimes that was solved or information was passed on in the police club between cops that actually led to identifying an offender just through general chit chat. And it's like we can't emphasize that enough. The more you work as a team, and the more you keep it. I mean, it's all about communication, isn't it? Really, you communicate well. You work as a team. You're all in it together, and the police force actually becomes far more efficient if you create that culture. Um,
Oh, definitely.
yeah, and that's
So,
one thing we had back in the day.
oh yeah, no, I think we definitely had it in spades when we first started. Not everybody, I might add. There were a couple of crews that you'd find stuff just shirked onto the next crew, but that was rare. I think most people worked well together and were keen to look out for the other crews and make sure that everyone was right. But um, I'll just add another thing on teamwork. Obviously, with my firefighter training that I do now, I deliver this training. One of the components I train is work as a team, believe it or not. So I'm passionate about teamwork. I think it's just such a good thing. I sort of first discovered teamwork. I mean, I played school sport and all the rest of it, but formalized trained teamwork was very early on in the army. I did a short period of time in the army, and it was all teamwork. There was no such thing. One person can't achieve anything. You have to work together as a crew. Policing is no different. It's not an individual sport. It's very much a team sport. So, another example of really good teamwork that I found pretty inspirational was I was a detective in Tennant Creek, and we had a missing person halfway along the Barkley Highway. So, basically, or not quite. So we were staged pretty well halfway. For those who know the geography, we were halfway between the Stewart Highway at Three Ways Roadhouse and the Barkley Homestead. So we were sort of 1/4 of the way to Mount Isa. So we're in the middle of nowhere. We're about probably 150 k's or maybe 100 kilometres from Tennant Creek, but then there's nothing else out there. Anyway, given the fact it was a search and rescue and we had most of us out there and we had pretty grave concerns for this fella, the tactical response group or the territory response group came down to assist. When they turned up, they got on the scene, they got straight out of their vehicles, and they didn't just stand around. They could see a couple of the general duties fellas from Tennant Creek were unloading trail bikes, just dirt bikes, XR250s or whatever they were. So they're unloading these bikes off this trailer. They just walked over and started helping. There's this term in tactical policing, and I believe it does come from the tactical world in the Defence Force, of look for work. And it really refers to clearing buildings. It's like you continually scan, you continually look for work. But what I love about them is they apply it to everything. They constantly look for work. So, and if all of them are doing this, everything just gets done.
Yeah.
So what happened was we're getting out, we're setting up things, and we wanted to set up an incident command post sort of thing. So an area where we could get comms back, good solid comms back to Tennant Creek and all this sort of thing. So that was basically off the side of a vehicle, but we were getting the bikes ready. We were going to have a fuel point and all that sort of thing, and where we could store water and food and everything for everybody. So that was the point that we were going to operate from. They just ripped into it. They grabbed the eskies out. They grabbed out the all the shade stuff. They just put everything up for us. They just looked for work, and then we had a briefing. It was like, right, we're going to get you blokes to do this. Every single person was grabbing a job, and no one was doing the same thing. Everyone's doing something different. So as a result, that small number of people, you are greater than the sum of your two parts. So if five people are working together, it's not 1 plus 1, or 1 plus 4 equals 5. It's 1 plus 4 equals 10 because you get so much more done. And if you can see the result of your teamwork, I find that the morale goes up because it's like bloody oath. We as a crew have worked together, and we're all valuable members of this team. And look what we've achieved, and
Yeah.
nobody feels overwhelmed. So, I mean, that's another little example. With firefighting now, I train especially with the new guys. Sorry, mate, I'll stop ranting in a minute.
Yeah.
But yeah,
You're on a
we,
roll, mate. Keep going.
I do like a bit of teamwork. Yeah. So an example, really basic RFS example is we pull up to a little fire and it'll be nothing and no further requirement for any other trucks. There might be 3 or 4 of us on the truck. The crew leader in the front will be giving sit reps over the radio straight away that the driver will be a pump operator. So he'll be out making sure the pump's started and ready. The other guys are straight on a hose. They're straight out. They're rolled out. They're into it. So everybody is doing something different, but everyone is working together to achieve the same outcome. And it just works so well. And I think I've seen other areas in government and in private enterprise where people don't do that. They sort of stick to themselves and don't try and work together. And they just never have the same result as if you're working well as a team.
Yeah. Mate, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It is so important. And yeah, like I've said, like a problem halved, is a problem shared is a problem halved. Yeah, but you do that across 10 people, it's now a tenth of the problem. It's a tenth of the workload. It's one of those things. And a lot we used to do in the old days as well is we used to put alerts on certain people if you needed a statement from them or something like that. So if you ran into them, you knew the good officers that worked as a team would, even though it's not their case, they would actually bring the person in, get a statement for you. You'd rock up to work the next day and go, "Holy shit, a statement's been taken." But it used to really shit you when people had so many involvements with these people and wouldn't even do anything about it. You'd sit there and go, "Oh shit, you had them here. Geez, it would be so simple just to get a quick, 15-minute statement or whatever off them." And blah blah blah. Teamwork is so important, and yeah, I mean, it's essential, especially for a good functioning police force. And I think a lot of the time, like, and we've discussed the police club and all this sort of stuff before, but that's what it actually created. It created camaraderie. It created working together. And I'll just tell a quick story. When I went out to Ramangini, I was out there for a number of years. Anyway, I was coming. I had to do because you've got to do your firearms recall and your defensive tactics recall and your first aid and all that sort of thing. And I was coming back in to Catherine, so I sent an email to Catherine Station because the turnover of police was fairly high at the time. I mean, it always has. And anyway, so I sent an email to the whole station, and I said, "Look, this is Schultzy. I'm the OSC of Ramangini. I'm coming in. I'm going to be at the police club this time. On this date. Come over and have a beer with me. Because it's really good to get a teamwork kind of. If you know me or I know you, we can ask each other for help, and it's a good way to get intel and all that sort of thing. Because I've mentioned before, the Aboriginals are so transient that you need that kind of, I suppose, camaraderie between even bush stations and in town. And anyway, a couple of the old cops that I'd trained came over that night, and one of the comments said to me was they said, "You know what? This police club has been dead until you arrived, and suddenly you just coming into here made it feel like the old days." She goes,
Yeah.
"That camaraderie and everything was back." And she goes, like, this is the first time the club's actually pumped or and not pumping like where it's loud and stupid, but it was. She goes, "This is the first time the club's been alive for basically since you and Damo left." Because she goes, "I just remember when I first came as a probie, that's what it was all about. It was about teamwork. It was about about working together and all that sort of thing." I will actually give a call out here too, because I did get in trouble for sending that email, because in our policy and procedures we're not allowed to send what is it? Non-operational emails to the whole station without approval from the OIC.
That's
However,
right.
I did negate my way around that. As I said, I said I apologise to the superintendent. I said, as I intoned it as a work-related, teamwork exercise, I thought this would be sufficient within the policy and procedures, and nothing more was heard of that. So,
Yeah. Old Teflon strikes again, Schultzy.
oh well, mate. I'll tell you what. One thing I did have, and I definitely have plenty of deficiencies. But one thing I am very good is justifying why I do what I do.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Mate,
so
just touching on what you spoke about there, like just back a little bit. You were talking about how you used to get frustrated if you had an alert on somebody's name to get a statement, and then you'd check them again and see that they had another involvement, but yet no one had actioned your request.
yeah,
So teamwork works in two ways. It's infectious when it's done well. If you can build a culture of teamwork, it inspires everybody to always think that way, because they know that if they do something for someone else, everyone will do stuff for them as well. And the team works really well together. They trust each other, and they can really synchronize it, and the whole place can operate well. The opposite is also true. When you see that your requests for information get just ignored time after time, and you're busy and you're trying to get help and no one's helping you, then you go, oh, I just couldn't be bothered helping anyone else. And as a result, that is infectious as well. So,
yeah,
and that the trouble is where the first scenario sets up a really good camaraderie and really good morale within a station or a unit or a section. Um, in the latter stage, that is where nobody helps anybody. That sets up a toxic workplace. And I think there's a lot of police problems around the place at the moment. But I think only today, really, it's what's today, Thursday, the 26th of September, and I'm fairly certain the New South Wales Police are in the news today for a toxic work culture. And it's like,
mm,
well, replace New South Wales with anywhere. And to me, it comes down from just a couple of little things, and it comes from a bit of leadership and encouraging that teamwork. And if everybody would get into it and really get amongst that teamwork, that's where there's a really strong opportunity to build that morale up and get the whole place working together hard. I know it's easy to sit here and use these big flash words and all these correct terms and all the rest of it, but I definitely saw the benefit of it.
oh, mate, yeah, 100%. It's essential. I think especially with frontline services, but like you said, it's any workplace. If you get that workplace working well together and a team structure, and look, a lot of that has to do with also the sergeants, and I think I look or whoever's in charge. But you get a good leader, and it's not so much about them, but it's about the troops. And I was a big, and I've mentioned this before. I said at the end of every shift, I basically almost made it essential that everybody come over to the police club. And I remember saying to some people, because some people didn't drink in the police, which was rare.
Mm.
But I said, I don't care if you come over and drink water. But I
Yeah.
want you over there just to sit there and debrief, so you don't take it home to your mum and dad, but to your to your
What are you, 6?
yeah, 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 spouse and
Yeah.
kids.
Yeah.
And just share it, and also it's a very good way to debrief, and you'll get you. It's amazing the amount of information or intel you get from just sitting there having that yarn.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure. Yeah.
and look, yeah, any workplace can adopt this strategy, and it'll be successful. But it really comes down to the leaders, the people in charge and all that sort of thing. Try and create that atmosphere, because yeah, it's. I mean, you and I have both worked in some great teams. That
Oh,
we
definitely. Yeah.
yeah, and it doesn't matter what happens. You'll face it together, and yeah, it's absolutely essential.
Yeah,
So,
no, definitely, mate. I think a
I
bit of a recap. So, I think the request or the suggestion for a topic was dealing with just the day to day stress, operational stress. So, We're sort of differentiating between post-traumatic stress, which we've gone on to, and just critical incident stress, which is the more acute version. This is more the sustained workload of policing because it can be extreme. And we've sort of gone across, spoke about, talking together and normalizing that, just that stress. But then the practical solution is working well as a team. So using, you're never by yourself. Well, I was by myself as a coroner's constable, and that was hard work. So
Yeah.
when you're not by yourself, when you're generally speaking in general duties police, you're going to be in a patrol group, and if that patrol group works well together, then that operational stress and that workload, that burden, is shared out. So I think that's the takeaway from today. And I think what you've just said there is magnificent. It covers all work. If you're a bloody plumber and you've got a crew of you there,
Yep.
if someone's standing around on the shovel and there's one bloke doing all the work, then there's resentment amongst everyone, and there's no ownership of the thing. But if everyone's ripping in and doing different jobs to achieve the final outcome, working towards an end state, then it's a much better place to be. And the burden just seems less.
Oh yeah, it's yeah, like, that's 100%. It's yeah, and it's something I'd like to see more. I mean, you see good crews every now and again, but it's I think if anybody takes a leaf out of the booklet from today, it's just try and create that. And I remember I worked in a couple of positions, and I remember even the superintendent saying to me one day where there was a bit of a problem at one of the stations. He goes, "You're the key." You're the one that actually brings people together and all that sort of thing. And and I mean that's also stress as well, because you've got to try and get people to get along when they, don't see eye to eye. But it's but if you can do it, it just creates a great, a fantastic workplace. So
Yep.
yeah, and mate, I was actually, I'm sorry, I mentioned just something else here. I was actually thinking I was going to tell a story, because one of the other stresses, but we'll save this for another episode, is also when you get internal complaints, or
Yeah.
not so much
Yeah.
internal, but actually complaints against police. That can be very, very stressful. But I think you and I have probably, I mean, I've got plenty of complaints, and I always did say, and I will apologise to EPSC here, but or what are they called now? Toe cutters.
Yeah. EPSC, Ethical and Professional Standards Command,
That's
or
right. Yeah.
PSC,
So,
Professional Standards Command.
yeah, because I said if you didn't get a complaint, you weren't doing your job properly. Um, but
Yeah,
yeah,
that's an episode in itself. I think complaints on police.
exactly, mate.
Yeah. And look, people can sit back and go, "Oh, yeah, complaints because you're not doing it." It's like, well, I know that there were lawyers in Catherine and around the place that would tell any of the drug offenders that every time you're targeted by drug and organised crime, make a complaint about them, and it'll slow them down. Well, remember that had the opposite effect. We just target them more. So
Yes.
it's it's one of those. I think that is a whole. That's probably an episode in itself, but we'll come up with something. But I think mate, what we've got a few more suggestions, but we want you to get in contact. We love the feedback because it sort of lets us know if we're given the content that people want.
Yep.
We're here to sort of provide information. If you really want to know something about police for people who aren't coppers, then let us know. If we don't know, we'll find out. And same
Yeah.
thing with police joining up. We've had a couple of people who are joining the police, like you mentioned. We love hearing from you there. And anybody, just let us know what you think. And any suggestions for topics is good because we're happy to talk. We'll keep talking anyway. So you
Well,
may as well talk about what you want.
exactly. Yeah, and look, it also we got a bit of feedback, and that saying, oh, the audio was really good. I think we've almost got it down pat the way we do it now. It's a learning curve, but it's
Yeah,
good.
we do. We do apologise for some of the earlier episodes. They're bloody hard to listen to. I know that.
Yeah. Well, mate, like anything, we're growing and we're getting better. I'd like to think so. So, look, if there is any problems with it, just let us know as well, because sometimes when you listen on different devices, it's better than others. So, but I think
Yeah.
we've kind of this online thing, we seem to have got it together at the moment. So, and it may it, like also like what Damo said there. If you do like anything, got any suggestions? We have got a truckload, but we love the feedback. It's we're up to what is it, over 37,000 downloads, mate. So
Mm.
we're more than stoked. And Damo and I do actually have, we won't let anything out of the bag yet, but we've got a couple of plans coming up that I think are pretty exciting. It's definitely for both of us, but we'll let a couple of hints out. Soonish. I've actually been going through Chat GPT, mate, and seeing if I can actually find some good hints to put out with nobody will guess what we want to do. But But yeah, so it hasn't. Oh, the problem is, mate, we're working with people who are interested in crime, interested in investigations and all that sort of thing. So they're already that way inclined. So yeah, we can't. It's hard to pull the wool over people's eyes. So
Yeah,
um,
exactly right. We definitely got a few things in store, and they'll come to fruition in the next couple of months. So yeah,
Yeah, but mate, yeah, and like Damo said in the last episode, if you like us, and follow us, please just go on to Podbeam and follow us because you won't miss an episode. And thank you all to everybody that listens. And I know there's a lot of people that actually got onto us later on, and they've actually listened to every single episode. And thank you very much for that. We're glad we're I suppose being informative, Damo.
mm.
I don't know how informative we are. We talk like a bit like a bit of a rabble bunch every now and again.
That's all right. No, very good, mate. Well, that'll probably wrap it up for another week.
I think it will, mate. Yes.
No worries. So the two ordinary cops. We'll see you next time.
All right. See ya.